I was hiding a hole in my nursing bra with medical tape the first time someone accidentally told me my husband was rich. Not successful. Not doing well. Rich. There's a difference, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The tape kept peeling away from my skin because it was August and humid, and my son had thrown up on me 20 minutes earlier in the Target parking lot. I remember standing under those awful fluorescent lights holding a box of generic diapers against my chest, while trying to decide if I could put back the coffee pods instead. I'd already done the math twice. If I skipped replacing the dryer another month, paid the pediatric bill late, and transferred $30 from my emergency savings into checking, we'd probably make it to September without overdraft fees. Meanwhile, my husband had spent $11,000 on a watch 3 days earlier. With my money. I just didn't know it yet. My name is Mara Bennett, and for almost 3 years, I thought I was part of a struggling upper-middle-class marriage, held together by budgeting spreadsheets, delayed bills, and my husband's exhausting career as a pediatric surgeon. Turns out, I was actually living inside a carefully managed illusion. And the worst part? It worked because I helped maintain it. Mara Bennett. I met Daniel 2 years after his first wife died. Daniel Bennett. People always softened when they talked about him back then. Poor Daniel. Poor man. Still grieving. Such a good father figure even though they never had children. Such a decent person after everything he'd been through. He had this quiet way of listening that made you feel like the loudest thing in the room was your own nervous system. The first time we had dinner, I spilled wine on myself because I laughed too hard and knocked the stem with my elbow. I was mortified. He didn't make a joke. Didn't do that fake, oh, it's fine thing people do while clearly noticing anyway. He just handed me his napkin and smoothly shifted the conversation so I could recover without feeling stupid. That mattered to me more than it should have. I grew up around loud men. Not violent, just emotionally bulky. Men who took up conversational oxygen. Daniel felt careful. I mistook careful for kind. That's probably the cleanest way to explain what happened to me. He was attractive in an expensive, forgettable way. Tailored coats, nice hands. Always smelled faintly like cedar and starch from dry cleaning. Older women adored him. My coworkers called him reassuring. One of my friends said, "You look calmer around him." I did. At least at first. The first weird thing happened 4 months after we got married. We were in bed. Rain outside. Netflix still running. I mentioned casually that I should probably start contributing more aggressively to my retirement account again because I'd slowed down during wedding expenses. Daniel looked genuinely confused. Why? I laughed a little. Because I'm 32? He kissed my forehead. I've got us. Simple sentence, normal sentence. Except something in me relaxed so hard it almost hurt. Nobody had ever said that to me before. Not really. I didn't realize then how badly I wanted to hand responsibility to someone else. That was the door. Not money. Relief. After that, things changed slowly enough to feel mutual. We opened a joint account because it made logistics easier. His words. Then he started managing bill pay because his hospital schedule made him obsessive about systems. Then our financial apps synced mostly through his devices because he handled tax prep. Every shift sounded temporary, practical, efficient. Nothing dramatic ever happened. That's important. There was no movie scene where he demanded control. No screaming, no threats. Honestly, if he had yelled at me early on, I probably would have left. Instead, he made me feel immature, which is much more effective. I'd ask something normal like, "Why is the credit card limit lower this month?" And he'd answer, "Because I moved liquidity around before quarter close." I didn't even know what that meant. But he said it while unloading the dishwasher or tying his shoes or doing some ordinary thing, so I'd end up feeling ridiculous for asking. Eventually, I stopped asking follow-up questions because every conversation somehow ended with me apologizing for stressing us both out. That's the embarrassing part. Not that he lied. That I helped him smooth the lie over because I wanted the marriage to feel stable more than I wanted clarity. I need people to understand that. Manipulation would not work nearly as often if it didn't cooperate with something hungry inside you. Mine was exhaustion. By the time I got pregnant, I was already editing myself around money. I'd open Amazon tabs and close them. I started lying in tiny ways. Telling friends I wasn't really into going out lately because I couldn't justify restaurant prices. Pretending I liked minimalism. Once I drove to a birthday dinner, saw the valet price and left before going inside. I texted the group that Noah had a fever. At the time, Noah wasn't even born yet. That's how scrambled my brain had gotten around money. I was inventing imaginary childcare emergencies for a fetus. Daniel knew exactly how stressed I was. I know that because he watched me constantly. Not in a jealous way, in a managerial way. He noticed everything. If I switched to generic yogurt, he noticed. If I skipped getting my hair done, he noticed. If I lingered too long looking at something in a store, he noticed. Then he'd reward restraint. That's the part I still feel sick about. One night, I put back a pair of maternity jeans because they were $90 and I couldn't justify it. Later that evening, Daniel wrapped his arms around me in the kitchen and said, "You're honestly incredible under pressure." I remember smiling, like a dog getting praised for not needing food. Around 7 months pregnant, I started doing telehealth counseling sessions online at night for extra money. Nothing dramatic. Mostly burnout evaluations and high school anxiety consults. I'd sit in the office with swollen ankles while Daniel slept upstairs. One night around midnight, I accidentally woke him coming back to bed. He squinted at the clock. "You're still doing those?" "We need the money." That annoyed him for half a second. Tiny flash, gone almost immediately. But I saw it. "No, we don't," he said too quickly. Then softer. "I mean, not like this." I stared at him. That should have been the moment I pushed harder. Instead, I said, "Well, somebody has to panic." He laughed quietly, not mean, almost affectionate. "Mara," he said, "you confuse anxiety with responsibility." I actually wrote that sentence down afterward because I thought it sounded smart. I found it in my notes app 6 months later and nearly threw my phone across the room. He did that a lot. Used polished language to make me distrust my own instincts. And because he was calm while I was emotional, he always looked rational by comparison. That's the trick. The calmer person usually wins the reality of the room. Especially if they're male. Especially if they're wealthy. Especially if everyone already thinks they're competent. After Noah was born, things got tighter. Or seemed tighter. He was colicky for almost 4 months. The kind of crying that turns your bones into exposed wiring. I stopped sleeping normally. Stopped thinking normally. Once I cried because we ran out of paper towels. Not elegant crying either. Like full-body angry crying while holding a screaming baby at 2 a.m. Daniel found me on the kitchen floor and immediately shifted into soothing mode. He crouched beside me, touched my knee gently. "You're overwhelmed," he said. I remember feeling ashamed instantly, not comforted. Ashamed, like I had failed some invisible maturity test. That became the emotional pattern of our marriage. I destabilized. He interpreted, and whoever interprets the situation controls it. The financial humiliation got worse in tiny increments. One afternoon, my debit card declined at a pharmacy while I was buying formula and nipple cream. There was a line behind me. The cashier was maybe 19. I still remember her trying not to look irritated while Noah screamed in his stroller. I used another card. It worked. Then I sat in the parking lot sweating through my shirt while convincing myself it was probably fraud protection. When Daniel got home, he barely reacted. "Oh, right," he said casually. "I moved money earlier." That was it. No apology. Nothing. Just mild inconvenience in his voice, like I'd asked where he left the scissors. I should have known something was wrong when I started feeling guilty for needing basic financial transparency. Actually, no. Earlier than that. I should have known when I became afraid of sounding difficult. A month later, I found the watch receipt. $11,400. Rose gold. I genuinely thought it had to be fake. We were arguing over grocery spending, and this man was buying jewelry for his wrist. When I confronted him, he didn't panic. That's what scared me later. He just glanced at the receipt and said, "That's insured valuation paperwork." I stared at him. What does that even mean? He exhaled slowly. Not angry. Tired. Like a father whose child was asking why the moon follows the car. It means not every document you find reflects active spending. I actually apologized. I need that included in the story because people always imagine victims recognizing abuse in cinematic moments. No. Sometimes you apologize and make spaghetti afterward. Sometimes you stand there holding evidence and still convince yourself you're probably being unfair. That's real life. 3 weeks later, Daniel donated $25,000 at a hospital fundraiser. Publicly. There was a photo online. Him smiling beside one of those oversized charity checks. I saw it while breastfeeding Noah with one hand and eating stale crackers over the sink. For maybe 10 full seconds, I genuinely thought the number had to be a typo. When he got home, I showed him the article without saying anything. He froze. Tiny freeze. Almost invisible. Then, pledge donation. What? It's structured over years. I looked around our kitchen. The peeling paint near the pantry. The broken cabinet hinge he kept saying we couldn't afford to fix yet. The breast pump parts drying on paper towels because I was trying to save on dishwasher cycles. And for the first time, I had this ugly thought. I don't think I know what my life actually is. Not dramatic enough yet to leave, but enough to make reality start wobbling. The thing that finally broke it open happened at a funeral. Not a dramatic funeral. Not cinematic rain and black umbrellas. Actually, the weather was annoyingly nice. Daniel's former aunt by marriage had died. An old-money Connecticut woman named Lorraine who apparently spent 30 years chairing museum boards and terrorizing caterers. I almost didn't go because Noah had an ear infection. Daniel encouraged me to stay home. that matters now. At the time, it felt considerate. "You don't need this stress," he said. But Lorraine's niece specifically texted asking if we'd come, so I packed Noah up and went anyway. The reception afterward was at this old stone country club full of whispering rich people and floral arrangements that probably cost more than my car. Noah started crying halfway through, so I took him down a side hallway near the offices to calm him. That's where Richard Halpern saw me. Richard Halpern, gray suit. 70-ish. Looked like the kind of man who alphabetized tax documents recreationally. He smiled at Noah first, then at me. Then his entire face changed. Not confusion. Recognition followed immediately by panic. "Mara?" he said carefully. I nodded. He glanced behind me, lowered his voice. "I didn't realize Daniel had come." Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. I adjusted Noah on my shoulder. He was chewing on my necklace. Richard hesitated again, then said, "You never requested direct distribution access?" I laughed because I honestly thought he had mistaken me for someone else. "I'm sorry?" His face lost color. Real color. Like blood physically leaving. "You don't monitor the trust personally?" I remember blinking at him. "Daniel handles our finances." Silence. Noah made this wet, snorting baby noise against my neck. Richard swallowed hard. Oh God. That's when my nervous system knew before my brain did. People talk about intuition like it's mystical. Mine felt mechanical, like every hidden gear inside me suddenly locking into place at once. I said, "What trust?" And Richard Halpern looked like a man realizing he had accidentally kicked open a sealed vault.